I'll equalize myself with you real quick.
Ugh.
They almost bend you over, man.
I feel like I just drowned in fucking chlorine water.
Might be our new thing.
Okay, I'm up.
Cool. Hey, dude. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I'm really excited. I'm kind of nervous.
Cool.
Dude, your eyes are watering.
I know, brother.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Man, I have so much I want to ask you. I took some notes and I brought them, but
All right.
You've had a journey.
Say the least.
A journey, man. I was just looking up that, you fought in Titan, Strikeforce, Bellator. You've had a couple different stints in Bellator.
Yep.
How'd you get into fighting?
Man, you want the long version or what? I guess.
Yeah, what's your first recollection?
So, really, when I was younger, I hung out with the wrong crowd and I got in some trouble. And I almost went to the penitentiary. I grew up in a single parent home. In my neighborhood, there was like 13 other kids, all my friends. We all had one parent, so it was hard to keep track of us, and we just did bad shit. And, it escalated as we got older, and I ended up getting into stealing cars and got in some trouble, got caught with some cars, and was looking at doing some time, serious time. And I was young. I was 17, and I was still in school. And my mom pulled me out of the school I was in. I'm not going to say any names of schools, but I was in independent school. And my mom pulled me out of the school and put me in a different school, which was a better school. And I still got in trouble because I was still hanging out with my friends. And so I was looking at some time, and instead of getting time, I got lucky by the grace of God. And I don't know if you believe in God, but I do. And, I think he saved my butt. And because I was looking at some serious time, I turned my focus on other things. I had to stay away from my friends. So I enrolled myself in martial arts, and is in Westport, actually, the gym that we're in now. And when I enrolled myself, I kind of just alienated myself from my friends and just stayed in the gym every day. I would just go there and just train no matter what. If I was learning something or if I was repeating the class or whatever, I just stayed in there and kept getting better and better and better. And I talked to another one, actually a few of my friends, and got them involved too. And we just kept training the whole time. And it evolved. I got my black belt in 2002 in Chinese Kempo, and I started kickboxing. And, I was just training to kickbox. And the gym that we was at was AKKA, and the head of the organization was Master Bill Packer, R.I.P. Bill Packer was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he had some people under him, and Mike Winklejohn was actually under him. And I went out there for a black belt test to support one of my friends. I was actually a brown belt at the time, and I met Mike Winklejohn. And at the time, he had just beat some Thais in Thailand. He was like the big thing in our organization, and still is to this day in MMA. And I was really impressed, and I talked to him out there, and he was like, yeah, man, you need to start training and start fighting. So I was like, oh, cool, bet. So as soon as we got back to Kansas City, I started training. I got my black belt. I took a kickboxing match. I won by knockout, head kick. And from there, it just kind of escalated. I kickboxed for a while. I kickboxed till 2000, from 2002 to 2005. Yeah, I'm old. I had my second daughter, and my wife told me, she was like, hey, you don't have enough time to do all this, with work. And she was going to school to be a nurse, and, I was a father of two. And so I was like, all right, I'll take a break for a while. And I just started lifting weights, and probably for a month I was out of the gym. And then I met Eric Farmer, and Eric Farmer, Landon.
Yeah, R.I.P. to Eric.
Yeah, Eric's Landon's dad, and I met him in the sauna. I was lifting weights, and he was like cutting weight. I was like, oh, I kind of recognized he was sweating and dying in there. I was like, where are you fighting at? He was like, Whiskey Tangos. It was like True Fight Fan first fight they had out there. And it's like kickboxing. He's like, no, MMA. I was like, oh, that's tight. He's like, yeah, you should come try it sometime. We're the Caveman Crew, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, okay, I'll come check it out. Granted, I was supposed to have been retired with my wife. And so I went and checked it out and instantly became hooked. I was kickboxing. I was a good kickboxer, so I was beating everybody up in there, but I was getting choked out by, like, little guys. And I don't remember the guy's name, but he's like a little 135 where he was triangling me and guillotining me. And I was like, man, I got to learn this magic that this kid has because I should not be getting my ass kicked by this kid. So long story short, I joined the Caveman Crew, and I'm still with them to this day. And that was 2005. And shit, 20 years. I'm old, like I said.
I think you're young. When they invited you to go to the Caveman Crew, where was that at?
At the time, that was one was in Grain Valley. Long story short, we lost that gym, and we ended up going to Steve's basement shortly after I joined. And I was already in, I'm a creature of habit, so, I wasn't planning on leaving the gym or nothing. So when we got kicked out of that gym, we went to Steve's basement, and it was actually a cave. We trained in there for a long time, and Steve's wife used to get mad at us and be like, Stevie, it's 9 o'clock. It's time for fucking bed. And he'd be like, okay, honey. Guys, hurry up. Last round. Right? And we trained out of there. We were dogs, man. We were fighting on all the fight cards we could get on. We didn't have a gym. It was just his house. And then we kind of built up our money, saved our money, and ended up getting a gym in Inglewood and Independence after that. And, yeah.
What year do you guys think you got the Inglewood gym?
Let's see. I started in 2005, so it would probably been 2006. We had it for like 2 years. So 2007, I guess. Then we had it for 2 years, and then 2009 we got the Raytown gym, which is still open to this day.
When you guys moved into Inglewood, were you kind of part owner at that point?
No, I was just.
Or were you still a student?
I was just a student. I was an assistant coach because I taught the striking, because the striking coach went to another gym. Leo Pla, he's still good friends with us. He still fights, actually, to this day. But he went his way, and we didn't have a striking coach, so they made me striking coach by default. And so I would just teach 1 or 2 nights a week. And I think I did kids class there, too. Yeah, I did. And so I teach a couple times, and then I would just train to fight, too, right alongside the guys. That's kind of my method of teaching, really, even to this day. I train right along with you guys,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know it firsthand. You always are participating in the classes. What was the MMA training like when you were in Inglewood and in the basement? How evolved was it?
In the basement, we were just banging, really. It was Steve's method was, I'm going to show you by guillotine or crossface neck crank. That's how we learn. Like, damn, what the hell was that? He's like, let me show you. And then we kind of started evolving, and really the Caveman Crew, really through this whole journey that I've been with the Caveman Crew, we've evolved. And if you've seen us from the beginning in the basement to what we're doing now in Westport, you would see the evolution. It's really evolved.
Yeah, I've been with you guys since 2015, and to see, I don't want to spoil it yet, but when you got to go full-time as a coach was like a really big moment to watch. I want to ask how you felt about that, but when did you go to Raytown then from Inglewood?
So we had a pretty cool gym. It was in Inglewood, across the street from Ben Franklin, if you know where that's at.
The school?
Yeah, Inglewood Plaza. Uh-huh. Our school was across from Ben Franklin. You know where that is?
Not the elementary school. There's like a Franklin
it is like
Elementary.
A 5 and 10 store on the square of Inglewood Plaza.
Yeah.
Inglewood, there is a Christian school there.
Yeah, I know about Inglewood, though. Inglewood Cafe is fabulous.
We're right up the street from Inglewood Cafe. Yeah, that used to be where we'd go and eat every day. But,
so were you guys looking for an upgrade? And
so we actually got kicked out of the Inglewood. I'm not really sure what happened. Like I said, I wasn't really involved with that. I was just coaching. And I know we lost. We got kicked out. All I know is Steve was like, we got to move. I was like, oh, well, shit. So he was thinking about going back to his basement. But one of our students / sponsors, Bob Williams, shout out to Bob, he helped us. He was doing HVAC. He has an HVAC system, B&H Heating and Cooling. And he was doing the HVAC in the Raytown Plaza at the time. and it was being sold. There was like a few dying spots there, but he got us a spot in there when we got kicked out, so we moved straight there. And it's kind of crazy story, but as we were preparing that gym to move in, we were literally painting the walls. Me, Joe Punchin, shout out to Joe, he's one of my good friends, helped to get the Caveman Crew up and going again too. Me, Joe, and Steve, and Joe's dad, R.I.P. to Joe's dad, we were painting the gym to open it up, and Steve had a stroke, and we were looking at shutting down the gym. And this is kind of what got me to taking over the gym. Is I had a fight scheduled with Tyrone Woodley on Strikeforce, main event on Showtime. And it was like the biggest fight of my career at the time. And I was like, fuck, no coach. Got it. We just got this gym. The walls aren't even painted. It's not even open. And we were all just standing there talking, me and Joe and his dad. He's like, fuck, what do we do? And I was like, well, the show must go on. And so I used my Strikeforce money and kind of established the gym, paid some bills, finished the painting, got mats, got a cage, a lot of help from other people that helped me. And pretty much that's how we got Raytown going. And
so the conversation with Steve after he had the stroke, basically he just needed somebody to take the reins.
Really,
or were you pretty gung-ho about owning the gym at that point?
It was kind of by default, man. Really, I was just trying to focus on my fight, and Steve had a stroke, and he really couldn't even talk for like the first couple months. And like it was like I just took the lead, man, led by example, and kept it going.
What do you know about Steve? We're talking about Steve Schneider, and hopefully we can get to Norman. I just saw on Instagram he got engaged today. Did you see that? Yeah, so shout out to him. But I mean,
congrats,
I can't.
Norman.
Yeah, congrats, man. What? How did Steve get brought up, and where was his base found? Was he a jiu-jitsu guy? I know he's involved in the AJJ.
Yeah, American Jiu-Jitsu. Steve, the Caveman, he's from American Jiu-Jitsu. He wrestled all his life, went to college, wrestled, got out of college, found jiu-jitsu. I think he did some tough man contests too. It's kind of mysterious, Caveman's past. I've talked to him about it, and I've seen pictures and I've seen videos, and I've actually seen Caveman fight, and I've actually sparred with the fucking Caveman in his prime, and he was a beast. And he'll fucking neck crank you and not give a fuck and walk off after he does it. And like, come on, let's go. The round's not over. And he was really grimy, and that's kind of why I liked it. I was like, all right, I'd get up and just keep learning. But, yeah, Steve came from Steve Crawford's American Jiu-Jitsu. Shout out to Steve Crawford. And trained there for a while, and I believe he got his nickname the Caveman because they were making fun of him. And I won't say no names, but they were saying he moved like a caveman, and which he does. But, it just stuck with him. So when Steve left and he started his own gym, Caveman's Crew, it just stuck, and now everybody knows that name,
Yeah,
cool.
Even the new building in Westport now, it says your name on the front, but everybody's like, I'm going to the cave.
Yeah, and it says Caveman Crew on the front too.
Yeah, you're right, it does say that too.
Hey, I'm loyal to the soil, man, just like a Chiefs fan. Even though we're not in the playoffs, I'm still wearing the Chiefs shit, I'll never change teams, and the same with AKK. The only reason I left that gym was because I pursued jiu-jitsu. They didn't do jiu-jitsu there. And, once I'm with the team, I'm with the team to the end. I'm not a traitor. I'm not jumping ship when shit hits the fan. You got to keep going, keep fighting.
When did you get really into jiu-jitsu? Like to where you had to go your own separate path. And if you want to talk maybe a little bit about your second professional fight, who's now the head of the organization that your school's associated with, Kronos.
You did your homework.
I did a little bit, right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I always took jiu-jitsu serious, but, striking's always been my thing. I'm a striker by heart. I still teach a lot of striking, all the striking class, not all, but most of the striking classes. I have to veer off and keep the path of jiu-jitsu too. Sometimes I get involved in striking because that's just where I'm at. But I really started getting really involved in jiu-jitsu when I got my first loss, and that was as a professional. My second fight, I got armbarred by Leonardo Pisagna. Shout out to Leo. He's my instructor now. But Leo came from Brazil, and he fought Bobby Volker actually, and like dislocated his shoulder, or broke his arm or something, and nobody would fight Leo. And at the time, I was like a lion, man. I didn't care. I was undefeated, amateur, world champion, regional champion, U.S. champion. So I was like, if he bleeds, you can kill it, right? And I fought Leo, and everybody was, well, not everybody, but some guys were telling me, oh, man, he's a 5-time world champion, man. That's out of your league. I'm like, man, who gives a fuck, man? We're fighting.
IBJJF, 5-time world champion?
Well,
or what?
Brazilian Pans, he's got a lot. If you look at he's got a lot of accolades, too. IBJJF is one of them.
But he was a jiu-jitsu world champion when you guys fought.
5-time. He was a beast. He was definitely a beast. And, talking to him later, he was scared of my striking, but I wish I would have known that. I would have poured on him a little more. But he armbarred me in the first round. That was my first loss, and I was like, man, I got to get better at jiu-jitsu. And Caveman used to always tell me, you're only as good as your greatest weakness, And at that point, I figured it was jiu-jitsu, so I really locked in. And a few months later, after me and Leo fought, we started training together, and I'm a black belt under him now. And Leo's a solid dude. There's always a language barrier, but like Leo told me, he's like, you speak English, I speak Portuguese, but we both speak jiu-jitsu. So, he just kind of bonded with me, and we trained at Ninja's gym for a long time before it was even a big Brazil academy. It was just a small little one-room spot, and we'd train in there and sweat, and they'd bring Brazilians over, and we train, and I fought out of the country with them, and we're pretty tight now. And now he's the owner and founder of Kronos BJJ, and I'm this right-hand man here in the States, so it's kind of cool.
So you guys connected pretty quickly after you guys fought?
Yeah, man, it's no animosity. When you fight, you can't be like, hugging it up at first. But, after the fight's over, man, you're both human. So, we just talked as much as we could. I told him, hey, good arm bar. He's like telling me he was scared of my striking. He had to jump guard, and that's what he did. But, we just bonded after that. And
at the time, was he part of Kronos?
No, at the time he was Novinhal, which is a pretty big gym in Brazil at the time. I heard it's not doing as well now, but it used to be like one of the top ones. And his professor, Master Wendell Alexander, I got a chance to meet him. He came down. I trained with him back in the day, and I was a purple belt, I think. But he's a coral belt now. But
wow. How did he get to Kronos? Do you know much of that story?
I can't tell you. I can't speak on the exact things that led him to doing Kronos, but basically, he got out of Novinhal and started his own affiliation, which was Kronos, which was better for the Americans, we'll say.
Was he still traveling back and forth from Brazil, or did he live in Australia at that time when he was training at Ninjas with you? Where was he actually living?
No, he's moved all around. At that time, he was living here for a while. Then he moved to Springfield. Then he moved somewhere else. Oh, Dubai. He moved to Dubai. He trained out there. He trained the sheiks out there. And they got a lot of money out there, so they paid him pretty good. And then Then he moved back. Then he went to Australia. Then he went to Brazil. Now he's back in Australia. So he's kind of jumps around all over the world.
What a connection to have.
He's trained
that guy.
in Japan. He's trained all over. He's well known in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu world.
What was the first belt he gave you?
Let's see, brown belt. I was a purple belt. I take that back. He gave me my purple belt first because I was a blue belt until I started training with him. I got my purple through him. Then years later, I got my brown, and then years later, I eventually got the black belt.
And when he gave you your black belt, did he did that in Omaha?
He did that in Springfield, actually, at a seminar. He called me up, and he was in town. He was like, hey, man, I'm doing a seminar. You got to come out. I ain't seen you in a while. And I was like, all right, I'll come. And I took my cousin Ralph, and at the time, Ralph didn't even do jiu-jitsu. He just wrestled, and he was interested in MMA and stuff. I was like, hey, we're going to do some jiu-jitsu. Let's go. He's like, I don't even got a belt. I was like, here, wear my blue belt. And he was like, they're going to know. I was like, just wrestle, bro. Just wrestle hard. They're not going to ask you shit. As long as you're side controlling people, you're fine. And so he wore my blue belt just for the seminar. All right, that was just it. And then when he got back, he's like, all right, I need to start training. And I gave him a white belt, and now he's a brown belt. So
when you went down to Springfield, did you know that you were getting promoted to black, or you just knew there was going to be some type of promotion?
Yeah, I didn't know, actually. I just knew that Leo told me to come out, and I hadn't seen him in a while. So I was going through some dark times at that time, and so I needed to get out of the house and went and did some jiu-jitsu, got the black belt, and got the spark back.
To see a guy who is probably more than a 5-time world champion now, who's traveled all over the entire world to teach jiu-jitsu, to hand you a black belt, what was that like?
Man, it was...
Was it pretty emotional?
It was very emotional. You know, I had a lot going on at the time, and, you know, to see all my training come to that. And, you know, I was a black belt in Kempo, and that meant a lot to me, getting that black belt. You know, the world at the time still does. But then to get the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you know, like I had no idea. And I knew it, hopefully someday I would get one, but it was just the timing and everything. I was beside myself for real.
So you make it back, and it seems like that's about the time we got pretty heavy in training the gi in Raytown.
For sure.
What was your thought process? Up until that point, the gym was doing a lot of MMA and a lot of no-gi. What was kind of going through your head when you decided we really needed to start instrumenting a lot of gi classes? What was the thought process behind that?
I don't want to say it's just a business decision, but, you know, some people don't want to fight. You know, some people want to come in and train and learn something and have an art and earn that black belt eventually, right, that don't want to fight, you know. So Leo, being a good leader that he is, he told me that. He was like, hey, man, you need to put jiu-jitsu in your gym with the gi, you know, because it appeals to other people. You're not going to get 71-year-old ladies coming in to do MMA, right? But jiu-jitsu, you know, anyone can do jiu-jitsu. You know, you don't have to ramp it up and kill each other every roll. You know, some people do, but, you know, jiu-jitsu can be for everyone, in my opinion. And I learned that through Leo introducing me, like, hey, you need more gi class. We had gi classes. We had judo, actually, in Raytown at the time, and we just ramped it up and started putting more gi classes, and then people are hooked. You know, not everyone, but, you know, I think it just evolved from that.
From my perspective, it seemed like that was probably 2016, 2015, and it seemed like you put gas on the fire, and shit has just been rolling ever since. And, I mean, I haven't looked back, and it doesn't seem like anyone has, and everything just keeps getting better after you introduce the gi classes. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's kind of running the gym. You know, I kind of see two different families with that. You know, the gi guys and the no gi guys. You know, because there's still the guys that are like, oh, I'm not putting on the gi. You know, I'm changing them slowly but surely, but, you know, it's two different things really. But like you said, once we started really putting in gi classes, it's just evolved ever since. And I love seeing others evolve, you know, because like we said in Kempo, you know, all the black belts, you represent a different monkey, basically, all right? It's the 5-animal fighting system. And when you put all the animals together, you make your own animal, your own monkey is what we say. And so seeing all these people train in the gi, I see a bunch of different monkeys, man, because everybody goes a different way. Some guys like lapel guards, some guys like close guards, some ankle lockers, you know. So it's really evolved and continues to evolve in the gym too, and I love seeing that.
Is it hard to have the conversation, because you don't want to take time away from the MMA guys, but you want them to train in the gi, but to direct them to something that might take their time away from what they want to do is fight? How do you deal with that? Is it something where you do take a back step and maybe you let them get through a couple fights before you really press that they come on over to the gi?
Really, like Caveman told me, you're only as good as your greatest weakness, and you know yourself from being in the gi is way more technical. You got so many more handles, so many more ways to get choked, so many ways of control, stop someone from passing your guard just by grabbing the lapel, where you can't do that in the no-gi. The no-gi is like Ferrari, it's just all gas, no brake. You're just going, so I don't know. It's hard to push it on people, but at the same time, it's a necessary evil, and that's kind of the way I put it to them. You might not like the gi all the time, but you need to be in that gi at least once a week to see what it's like, to see that control, to get swept by grandma. So
yeah,
it's real.
Let's go back to 2015 and 2016. Pardon me. You were working full time.
Right.
And you had to make a decision, and I told Chris yesterday, Master Splinter, when he was on, that he had an opportunity to do something very unique where the journey in whatever martial art it is, to turn it into a career, is something that a lot of us dream of, because a lot of us love to train, but it's not conducive with a career. What was it like when you finally pulled the trigger and you got to quit your job and your job became running a martial arts institution?
Man, I think that was actually like 22, but...
Oh, really? You worked that late? I thought you would...
Yeah, I've always wanted to run a gym full time, even in Raytown. I've actually done it. I did it for a year, and, I had the support of my wife at the time, and she's a nurse, and she was working nights, and I would run the gym in the daytime and watch the kids. And I did it for a year. I fought like 4 times that year. And one day she was leaving. It was early in the morning, and she was getting ready. I was like, hey, turn that light off. And she looked at me, and she was like, you need to get a fucking job. I was like, fuck. Never mind, leave it on. But, I went back to working. I got a job at Harley Davidson after that, and I worked my way up, man. I started there, I was full-time MMA at the time, running the gym, the Raytown gym. And so once I went back to work, I started at Harley, and I just got on as a temporary worker just because I just needed a job so my girl's not bitching at me. And I actually worked my way up to one of the top 4 of the company from the bottom, from temporary worker. It's kind of crazy, and I could get into that story more, but people when you're a temporary worker there, they're like, oh man, they're not going to hire you on full time. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to be full time. I want to train MMA, right? And but I kept working there, and I worked my way up, and before I know it, I'm in charge of fucking the whole assembly plant. I'm like, oh shit. So they put me on nights. I was still running the gym during the day. So to pull the trigger and quit everything and just be in the gym, to be all in, that's a hard thing to do. And I end up doing that later on after Harley. I worked at Ford for a while. And after working at Ford, I was like, man, this fucking place sucks. I'm going all in. And once I got the Westport gym, it's a whole different animal, really, than Raytown, because, one, the price. It's not cheap to be there. So you got to be on top of your shit. You got to be able to pay your bills. 2, the people, there's a whole mixture of people. Raytown has a mixture of people too, but not like Westport. So to be successful in Westport, I knew I had to be all in. I couldn't be part-time working and part-time at the gym. I got to be all fully committed. So that's what made me pull the trigger, and I haven't looked back. It's pretty cool to wake up and do what you love. Granted, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's all kinds of obstacles every day. Believe me, no one sees it but me. But there's obstacles every day, and you have to find a way to overcome them, and then on to the next.
Did you ever think to yourself how you applied yourself at Harley and how you made it up the ladder so quick that maybe you just have it, and that no matter what you do, you just have that grind and you have that hustle and you have the ability to see the gaps and fill those gaps. And that's why it doesn't really matter, because that's what I see when I see you. Like, I think whatever you decide to do, it's going to work out. And I can't imagine, you probably told yourself that, fuck, if I'm doing this, I could do anything. And then to see it work out, it has to feel so good, man.
I'm not cocky at all by any means of that. That's probably all true. I feel a guy told me a long time ago, and this was actually at Harley. He told me, man, my dad told me, son, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best fucking street sweeper out there. And that kind of stuck to me. I'm like, that's real shit, No matter what you do, you got to be all in on what you're doing, whether that's fighting, whether that's street sweeping, whether that's skateboarding. You got to be all in, or why even do it? Half-ass it. Why half-ass it? If that's what you want to do, you just got to be all in. So, that's kind of the approach I take on everything. That's kind of what I try to teach my kids too. It doesn't always stick to them, but
they're kids.
Yeah, go learn.
Do you want to talk about the gym that you're in now in Westport? You kind of mentioned earlier, but that's the gym that you got your Kempo black belt in. Well, it's essentially started in.
Yeah.
So the same building that you started your journey on with a totally different martial art is now the gym that you own.
It's kind of full circle, man, and I'll never sprinkle any shade or nothing on AKK because they got me started. They really showed me what being a martial artist is. Shout out to Rick Gibbons, Sam Middleton, Jeff Nill, Jerome Burgess, Marsha Miller. Those are my mentors back in the day. And, they back then, they kind of, I was a clean slate. I didn't have any bad habits. So, they kind of showed me what being a martial artist is. And I took a Sambo class, and it had leg locks and stuff in it, and I really liked them. And I came back and I was showing some guys at the Kempo gym. I was like, hey man, check this out. And then my instructor came up and was like, hey, we don't do that here. We don't need that. Our system has everything we need. We don't need to be bringing the extra shit in. And I was like, but this is a fucking cool ass leg lock. Look at this. Let me show you. So anyways, they kind of frowned upon jiu-jitsu, and I was there from 1997 is when I signed up. I was still in high school, and I was there until 2000. And then I went with my instructor. He opened a gym out north, and but that whole time, I wanted to do jiu-jitsu, and they're like, no, jiu-jitsu's not cool here. So I was like, all right, well, long story short, big full circle. Now I'm teaching jiu-jitsu in that school. So, that's kind of crazy, but it's just, the Lord works in mysterious ways, so I think I was meant to come back there and show that fucking leg lock.
Did you feel like you had an inherent need to get that building when you found out that it was vacant?
COVID happened. And I've always, every time I drive through Westport, I've had so many years training in that gym, and I always look at that gym like, oh, there it is. I got pictures of me when I was like 18 standing in front of that gym. And so I've always looked at it. And then when COVID hit, that shut down a lot of gyms and a lot of places. It didn't shut us down in Raytown, though. We still train, for the record. But, when COVID hit, it shut that gym down, and that was my first thing. I just drove by it one day. I was like, ooh, I wonder if I could get that. And I made some phone calls and talked to some old instructors from around then, and that gym had changed hands before. And even Splinter taught there for a while. He ran that gym for a while, Kempo.
That's what he was telling us yesterday.
And, so when it came available, all the stars aligned. I ended up getting a hold of the owner through one of my old instructors. And the owner lived in Texas, and I pitched the game to him, and he sounded interested, and his grandpa gave him the building. He inherited it through his grandpa, and it had always been a martial arts gym. And so he wanted to continue the tradition through faith for him. And so he flew down here and he came to the Raytown gym, and that was after COVID and shit, and we remodeled it and everything, repainted it. It is like it is now, you know. He came and he was like, oh, this is really cool. He's like, all right, I'm willing to give you a chance. And he gave me a chance, and we signed an agreement, and knock on wood, we're still there right now. I just left there.
Yeah. What does it mean to you that Raytown's still open?
It means a lot, man. I mean, like the story I told you, you know, when I took it over with Steve, and, you know, to have it still running this year, to say it's been running for 16 years, I mean, not a lot of gyms can say that, you know, especially MMA gyms. You know, they come and go. You know, shit happens. I mean, out of our control. But to be consistent enough for 16 years to still have that place is a miracle, really. I've had some days where, or some months where I'm paying to keep it open, you know, and then I've had some months where, you know, it buys groceries for me, you know. So, you know, I've had a lot of ups and downs with that gym, so it's got a whole lot of sentimental value. My kids have grown up there. All of them have trained. You know, my kids, my oldest is 23 now, and my youngest is 16, and they've been in that gym since they were, young. Real young. I took my daughter to her first class when she was 3 months. And I put her in a baby swing while I would teach classes. Funny story. I'll give you a good story on that. One day I was teaching class. I was teaching kickboxing, and she was crying, and I ran out of formula. And granted, she's like 3 or 4 months. And I didn't have no formula, and I was in the middle of the class. I wasn't about to, you know, cancel class or nothing. So I had this idea. I'll just give her some Gatorade. Gatorade's not bad, right? So I put some Gatorade in her bottle. She's drinking, and she liked it. She quit crying. She was cool, chilling, swinging, cool. Taught class. Went home, and, you know, I had long days because I was working too at the time. And I got home. I put her in bed. My girl got home. I passed out. She woke me up. Babe, wake up. Autumn's throwing up blood. I was like, oh, shit. Right, and it's our first kid. So I fucking jump up. I started getting ready. And she's like panicking, grabbing our insurance and stuff. And I was like, wait, babe, wait. It's Gatorade. She's like, what? Why would it be Gatorade? I was like, is it red? She's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I gave her some red Gatorade. Why the fuck would you give her Gatorade? I ran out of formula. So that's a pretty cool memory story. But parenting 101.
Heath always jokes with me. When we saw probably like their late teenage years, when you started to go full time, and you kind of had them helping out in the gym and getting waivers, and
Lily.
Lily waiver.
Yeah.
But Heath and we always laugh about Marcus, and if he didn't shrimp, he couldn't play video games.
Hey, you got to have some kind of carrot to dangle in front of him.
Oh, we'd love it, dude. It's so cool and so neat to see a family affair. Do you hope that your kids want to come back to train jiu-jitsu ever? I think I've asked you this before, but
I think the boys will. The girls are done with it. You know, their mom gave them an ultimatum. Well, she told them that when they're 14, they got to train until they're 14. Then they can decide. And when she said that, I think Autumn was like 13. And as soon as she turned 14, she's like, I'm done. And so she just started doing girly stuff. And that's what my wife was like, you don't want to make them boys. And I'm like, all right, well, Lily, you're 12, so you're still here. So then as soon as Lily turned 14, she quit as well. She ended up coming back and doing waivers and stuff. But, you know, the boys, they don't have a fucking choice. They train until I say they fucking got football or something else.
Yeah.
Right? But I could see Marcus and possibly Mauricio coming back. I don't know. I see them mess around with each other, and they'll do techniques. I'm like, you still got it. You know, I taught it real.
Yeah. So. Oh man, take me back to your MMA career. What do you think of it? Like, what do you remember? What were the great moments that really sit with you?
Man, I'll tell you, I never had an easy fight ever. All right, I kickboxed. No offense to my first opponent. Peter Maioli, I won't forget. But, that was probably my easiest fight that I've ever had in my life, because after that, they're like, all right, this motherfucker can fight. Give him this guy. Give him this guy. Right? And so I've always had tough fights. No easy fights. Never an easy fucking fight. So whenever I think about my MMA career, I didn't pick my fights. Really, Caveman picked my fights. He'd be like, all right, we're fighting this. All right, we got this offer. All right, look, we got this guy. And I didn't be like, oh, give me an easy fight, man. I got stuff to do. No, man, I was fighting beasts, man. If you look at my record, you'll see. I don't turn down any fight.
Tyron Woodley, MVP, Neiman Gracie, Paul Daly.
Yeah. Leo, 5-time world champion.
Yeah. Oh, man.
My first pro fight, I fought Isaac Villaflag in New Mexico. And the only reason I fought him then, I was still amateur. I was a world champion amateur, by the way. And I was wanting to go pro. And Steve got a fight in Albuquerque. I don't remember the guy he fought, but he was like, hey, Rudy, I got you a fight. You're coming with me. So I went out. We split up as a team. Half of our team went to, I think, the Lake of the Ozarks, and then half of then me and Steve went out to Albuquerque. And when I fought him, he had Damasio Page and some other guys in his corner. He had some stud UFC guys that I watched in his cornering him. And here I am fighting this dude that, he actually fought in the UFC as well. But no easy fights, man. I subbed him in the first round, and that was a huge win. Very calm and collected. Right after my win, I just bowed, shook his hand, and went in the back room. I seen other guys trying to celebrate after they won, and those New Mexicans fucking took it to them.
What was the best organizational experience you had? You fought in Titan, Strikeforce, Bellator, and M1, I read, and a bunch of others.
Bellator took really good care of their fighters, and so did Titan Entertainment. They took really good. My manager was Joe Kelly at the time, and he was the owner of Titan Entertainment, and he always took real good care of me too. Shout out to Joe Kelly. But Bellator, they really made you shine there. I fought on some other ones. M1 Global, that was a pretty cool experience. Yeah. Fedor was on the card on that one, so
that's crazy.
That's the only reason I took that fight, because Fedor was on the card. I was trying to finagle my pay. I was like, hey man, I'm on like a 7-fight win streak. Can I get like a little extra? And they're like, nope. I was like, Fedor's on the card. All right, I'm in. Fuck it. And I won by flying knee on that one too. That was pretty crazy fight too.
Oh, what fight was that?
I forgot the dude's name, but it was a good fight.
M1 Global.
M1
yeah,
Global,
we'll find it. That's great. What years were you pressing it as a full-time career when you were doing MMA? What years had you decided in your head there's nothing else but this? I mean, I'm sure most of them, but
really, having kids, man, I could never think like that. I always got to have a backup plan. And my dad would tell me that too. You always got to have something. You can't fight forever. That's what he'd always tell me. And I take that to heart. So right out the gate, right out of high school, I was a mechanic, and I got a job at a factory building ground support for airlines, and I did that for a long time, actually, like, I don't know, 10 years or something. But so I got some mechanic skills, and then I went on to industrial maintenance, and then I went on to supervising industrial maintenance, and then I went to a manager. So I've always had a backup plan, and I can still always go back to turning wrenches if I need to. But you always got to have something on the back burner. You can't fight forever. It's just life. It's just reality.
And that's something that I wouldn't say is really instilled in even the young guys right now. That's a tough conversation. A lot of them, they might have it in them, but a lot of it is luck, injury, retention in the gym. But
right.
It's cool to hear you say somebody with 40 fights, not counting the kickboxing, not counting the amateur, not counting the gym wars that I'm sure you've had, to think like a professional, not just a fighter.
Got to, man. That's my dad genes, man, because, you got to support your family regardless, of anything.
Yeah. I've only had a couple amateur fights, but for your guys that are really pushing to go pro, How do you mentor them?
You know, it's, once you go pro, you never go back. It's a big jump for them, and like myself, and my coaches used to tell me, man, do 10 fights and see if you want to do this, on a professional level. And that's what I still tell my students, do 10 fights and see what you think. Everybody get that first win. Oh, yeah, I'm going to fucking do this. I'm going to go pro, blah, blah, blah. Do 10 fights and then tell me that again and we'll fucking do it. It don't take 10 for everybody. There's a mandatory 6 that you need to have in Missouri, before you can go pro. But, not everybody's up for 6. Cut weight 6 times and then talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Cutting weight. There's a lot of things. And I tell people that, as mentoring people to the fights, there's a lot of variables before your fight. You got to make all the stars align because they don't always align. And you still have to show up and do what you're planning on doing. If you sign a contract, you still got to be there and fulfill your contract. Otherwise, they're going to look down upon you in your career, no matter what it is. If you're supposed to be at work, you need to be at work, or what's going to happen? You're going to get fired, right? So, same thing.
Do you how do you feel now about like the concourse of MMA that you have amateur cards doing press conferences and giving these guys opportunities, and it's truly guys like you, probably in the low thousands, that set the stage for multimedia exposure? I mean, Shamrock, just in the last 3 years, they're going crazy. All these local shows are phenomenal. Every single jiu-jitsu match at IBJJF is on video now. You can watch it on Flow Grappling. Do you have an opinion on how amazing that is? Do you kind of stay out of that, or do you have a full recollection of like, this is what it was, and this is, because that's how I see it. I'm like, God, I bet a lot of these guys, I use this term lightly, and I don't mean it negatively, but like, not jealous, but that's the best word I can think of. These guys, they have the ability to be on, well, even look at that double punch knockout that made it to the ESPN top 10
from Shamrock,
from
our guy,
from your guy.
Yeah.
And it's evolved so rapidly. How does you feel about that when you see stuff like that?
It's definitely evolved. Definitely. From when I started training, I'd have to go here for jiu-jitsu. I'd have to go here for wrestling. I'd have to go here for boxing. Now you fucking watch reels and you fucking can do everything from your smartphone, right?
Yeah.
So, it's really evolved, for the good and bad. People that are scrolling on phones, doing their jiu-jitsu that way, you need to get in a gym and practice this shit real. Because as you've seen, people will learn some shit on YouTube or Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and then come to the gym and that shit don't work. We just cross-face them and take their back.
Guilty as charged.
So, you need more than just that, but it has evolved in the fact that you can watch tutorials, you can get the Gordon Ryan special, and study that and pick something up off of it. But back when I started training, I had to go find Gordon Ryan wherever he trained at, right, and get some actual one-on-one with him, because there was no way that I was going to find a video. YouTube was like the start of it, really. People would say, I watched this on YouTube back in the day. And now, it's really evolved, right? TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you're seeing reels all the time. People doing reels every day. I'm guilty as charged too. I used, recorded some reels, some moves, and put them out there online for people to find them. So, the sport's really evolved in that way.
It's just amazing to see you getting guys on planes as amateurs and flying them to Florida. To me, that's so amazing, dude. I don't think I ever had it in me to be a fighter, but for the guys that are willing to show up and do that stuff, I'm happy for them. I feel like the cap is nowhere near what it was, and every single year it evolves. Even the Shamrock, the quality of the fights, just from last year to this year, they're all HD, they're all 1080p. Right. They have a guy giving them interviews after the fight. And if this is something you want to do, now you're getting to practice every single aspect. Let's say you go on and you make it to a big organization, PFL, Bellator, whatever, UFC. Now you've had time on the mic. You've had time promoting yourself. You've realized like maybe showing up in shorts that have sponsors on them, shorts that match my fight kit. It's all super important now because it really is a sport rather than just fighting. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like it's not just fighting anymore?
It has really evolved, and going back to like you're saying, getting people on fights in other states and stuff. I think, in my opinion, that's just the best opportunity for them to see that. If this is what they want to do, Mike, if this is what you want to do, you want to fight full time, let's see. All right, we're going to sign this contract. We're going to go to Florida. You're not getting paid because you're amateur, but you're getting a trip. You got a hotel. You got food. You got blah, blah, blah. You got to go out there. You got to fight in this dude's hometown who's got 10,000 fans that are cheering against you, But that's like a priceless experience. Like, you can't buy that, But for our guys to be able to go and do that, and it's not just one, hundreds, right, as Enrique would say. It's a lot. We put a lot of guys out there, but that's good experience for them. So if they do want to do this on the big stage, if they do want to go to Bellator, if they do want to go to, well, Bellator's no longer, but PFL, UFC, some of the big shows, they need that kind of exposure. So that's not the first time going out of town to do something like that. You don't want that to be your first time to be on UFC for the first time, main event,
right?
Boom, boom, boom. You got 10,000 people cheering against you, But for some of our guys, they're like, man, I've been there. I've been on the plane, hungry, cutting weight, getting there, hitting the ground, running, cutting the rest of that weight, going to weigh-ins, people cheering against me, taking the belt, flying home, getting a coffee, taking pictures on the way. That's lifetime shit, man. That's good shit.
That's fucking memories for a lifetime, right, dude. And they all earn it.
Whether they go pro or not, that's
even if you go out there and lose and you're sitting on the plane and you haven't had food in 18 hours and you're taking little cap sips of your water, when you're done with that fight, it just feels so good to be able to say, in a humble way,
right?
Yeah, dude, I was starving on the flight. I had to go all the way, 12-hour flight here or there, right, to fight this guy. I wanted to talk to you about Norman. So Steve Schneider, the guy who got you into the cave, you first started training at that place in Grain Valley. Did you want to talk about, not even negatively, but about the whole situation in Grain Valley? Because that eventually turned into the old school, whatever Glory was before Glory, right?
Grindhouse. I won't go into that story, but we ended up getting snaked out of our gym for that. We ended up getting kicked out of our gym, and somehow our rival gym took over our gym. So that's kind of some snake shit, but that was before me. I was just joining the gym, so I had nothing to do with that, but that's kind of where I kind of seen the fight business is not all sunshine and rainbows.
But even that, doesn't that kind of the compartmentalization, or I guess should I say like the close connections, like everybody knows everybody, the industry's so small, isn't that kind of a cool story? That you started and you took the same steps on possibly the same mats as the other gyms?
Nah, I don't know.
You got some bad blood there.
I don't have nothing good to say about that situation. I'll let Steve tell that story.
Yeah. So then you hook up with Steve and you go train in the basement. You get the spot in Inglewood. You get the spot in Raytown. You eventually take it over. When did you meet Norman, or how young was Norman?
So Norman,
this is Steve's son we're talking about, just in case.
When I first started training with Steve, right, we was in the Grain Valley gym. We got kicked out, and then we went to Steve's basement after that. And like I said, Steve's wife Tammy at the time, she'd be yelling, "Stevie, practice is over. It's 9 o'clock. These kids got to go to bed." And Norman was in diapers upstairs, and sometimes he would wander downstairs, and I would try to be teaching him arm bars with his diaper on, his little dirty diaper probably. I'd be having him arm bar me and stuff. And, we always been looking out for Norman. And as he grew up, he's the same age as my kids. So I'd be teaching kids class. I'd have Norman doing adult stuff with my kids too. They're all of them training hard like real fighters. I like teaching kids. It's cool to see techniques that we're practicing in a micro version, right? So, I've known Norman since he was in diapers, literally. And now Norman's fighting on some of the bigger stages and soon to go pro. He'll go pro, I guarantee. And it's kind of crazy that, his dad taught me, and now I'm teaching his son. And I don't know. Maybe he'll teach my grandkids, I guess.
Yeah.
My kids are too big now. But
Is it surreal when you first walked him out there on his first Shamrock show? I know he did some of the
really
amateur stuff, and he did some stuff with pads on, but to see him walk out there on one of the bigger amateur stages, what was that like?
It really was. It was full circle, man. And me and Steve cornered him. So, you know, that's just, it don't get better than that, you know, full circle, you know.
Other than that, what are some of your most like satisfactory moments of being in the part of a circle or leading somebody else? Let me give you an example of one I'm thinking of, and you can kind of relate, like the CWB fight where he went in on Apex. You know, as the dog, he's fighting. I forgot who that guy's.
That was you're talking about
Zeb when he fought
Macmo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Macmo Green.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like to be there and the crowd's going bananas, you know, everybody's rooting against him, you know, or how about the Hunter fight when he takes it on pretty short notice and he's fighting the striker, outstrikes him, grinds him out, ends up getting the head and arm choke or the arm triangle on him, and the crowd erupts. What type of moments do you think about as far as your coaching career? What are some of your favorite moments?
You know, one was Zeb. Shout out to Zeb. Zeb, you know, when he came to us, it was 420 a couple years ago. You know, he came in and just tried a class. And Zeb had fought one of our guys, Jimi Hendrix, actually, and not the singer, one of our students, Jimi Hendrix. And Zeb beat Jimmy, and Zeb didn't make weight at the time. I knew Zeb was tough, and I underestimated Zeb, you know, but he came in heavy and he beat Jimmy. Very respectful after, you know, he's a good guy. And I was like, all right, that's cool, you know, whatever. It is what it is. And then Zeb came in a couple years ago on our gym, and he had just went pro with bare knuckle and lost. He fought out of his weight division. He fought at 205. And, you know, he came in and was like, hey, man, I want to join the gym. I was like, bet, come on. And so, you know, we still train to this day, and I've seen Zeb evolve into a monster, bro, from, you know, being unchained pit bull to a just straight up dog, straight up monster. And that's one of my good coaching, because we kind of developed a strategy for this bare knuckle. You know, it's different. When you take the gloves off, it's totally different range. It's totally different striking power. And now Zeb's number 4 in his weight division in the world, and that's you know, I don't want to take all the credit for that, or, you know, but I'll take some of it, because you know, because we've been grinding together, and that's a good coaching accomplishment for me. Another one is Will Johnson. Will's not living in Kansas City anymore. He doesn't fight anymore, but he came in off the football field and fought amateur. He only did 4 fights. And then we end up going pro on Bellator. And his pro debut, he had an Olympic wrestler. I'm not even going to say his name. But Will suplexed the Olympic wrestler, and that was a big highlight. We end up losing that fight off some bullshit by the ref. And I won't say his name, but I still remember that. But, yeah, that was a good coaching moment. To bring Will up from the football all the way to fighting on Bellator, that was big, and he showed out on that fight, and I'm really proud of Will and everything he's done in this sport. There's plenty. I can just go down a list. And
when you talk about the bare knuckle, how did you feel as when Zeb comes to you and he's done that one fight, and now he wants to go down this path? And I'm sure some of it, his ability to know exactly what he wants to do in life is inspiration to help you know that you're guiding him down the path. But what kind of responsibility did you feel to go out and figure out how to solve this problem that's bare knuckle, that's brand new to everybody, to make the playing field uneven, to give him an advantageous position? What was that like? Because now you're going down a new path, he's going down a new path.
Yeah, we pretty much, we've been learning together, you know, because bare knuckle is a newer sport. It's an old sport. Yeah, they've been bare knuckle boxing since back in the day, you know. But, you know, to to Zeb's credit, man, he's really evolved himself because we totally scratched his first fight and just rebuilt, his identity. And I don't want to give out too many tips and stuff on how we train for this, but it is different. And we kind of had to compromise on what was going on and the problems we were having and what happened in the first fight. How can we change it? And then, fight by fight, we just keep getting better and better. And, I mean, he lost his last fight, but it was a damn good fight, and it could have went either way, and we know that. Bare knuckle, it's, man, you get cut like that. One jab, and it could be a fight ender, so we got to keep our hands up. We got to keep our head movement. We got to strike fast, and so Zeb really took up all that, and that's really all him, man. And in there, I mean, we can train all day together, but once you get in there, it's him by himself, and he's really stood out in the bare knuckle scene.
Little CWB highlight.
Nice. Hey, he's got some rhythm. Look at him.
Yeah, he's so great. I love his uppercut. This is one of my favorite punches of all time. That uppercut that you can't really see until the replay, and it just right up his nose.
Oh, that's like brain matter.
Oh, I heard this guy. Oh, man. What were some of the biggest problems that you had to solve? I know you don't want to talk about the specific training, but like when you showed up for the first time to corner him, was there anything that was like, damn, next time? As far as, because they do wrap them somewhat. Like, did you have to wrap them?
Yeah, I did wrap them. They just now made it to where you have to use their wrappers because they include the thumb and people were cheating and stuff. But when they give you the tape to wrap his hands and it's just one roll of red tape, you're like, damn, that's it. No gloves. There you go. There you go. You got to show the knuckles. There's a certain way you got to wrap it. You got to add the thumb now. But once we wrapped his hands, I was like, damn, no gloves.
Did you have any lateral mentors that were around that you were like, hey, dude, what do you think? Like when he was starting to really decide that he was not going to do MMA and that he was going to go down this path.
No, it wasn't even really that he was not going to do MMA because he'll still do MMA to this day. And he's surprising on the ground. I don't know if you grappled with him the other day, but when he was in there in the gi.
I wasn't, but we know he's a crusher on the ground.
But, just that Zeb has that grit, man, and that can't be taught. You just got to have either you have it or you don't. And Zeb definitely has that grit to get in there multiple times with no gloves. Fuck you. Let's see who's standing at the end, right? So that takes a lot. And really, like I said, we kind of figured it out together. We capitalize on mistakes that we make in previous fights. Maybe he got hit with the jab. All right, we need to keep our hands up more. We need more head movement. We need to be more relaxed in there. So we're kind of just learning the sport together, man. It's still evolving, and there's a lot of techniques that we've adapted to and use to this day. But Zeb will still fight MMA too. He ain't scared.
Yeah, no, I know he will. But I think with his position and the way I see BKFC take care of their fighters, it seems like the course that he's on right now is probably to focus because it could be a last-minute pullout, and he's fighting for the world championship.
True that.
Ranked number 4 in the world.
True that.
It's so cool to see that you guys going down that journey. Does that keep it exciting since it's something different?
Definitely. It's definitely different. And it's not. And Zeb is definitely the first one of us that did the BKFC. And when he came to the gym with that, I was like, ooh, that's crazy. All right. And now we're like, all right, that's serious. So keep your fucking hands up. Right, but we've had a few other guys fight on those cards too. Big John, Jesse,
Yeah.
Nasser fought.
Nasser fought the bubble.
Yeah,
what do they call
knuckles.
it? Bubble knuckles.
And really, it's just MMA gloves.
Yeah, but it gets them used to the rule set.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And we learn from that too.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Right.
Oh man, it's so cool, and to see, it could take off to where you guys in 2 or 3 years and 3 or 4 more fights, you guys might be veterans of that sport. And people might be coming to you saying, hey, Rudy, hey, Zeb, I want to do bare knuckle. Have you seen anything about how they're doing the fighter share and trying to get the health insurance for
No,
BKFC?
I didn't really see that.
So they're working on, and I don't know where they're at, but they're working on a fighter share. So you know how I think this is most organizations, maybe you can speak to, but like in UFC, the more fights you have, the more you get paid.
Right.
So this is going to be, I believe, the more fights you have, you get stock in the company.
As you should.
As you should. But it's awesome to see them doing something unique. And a lot of people, including myself, I thought BKFC would topple. Nobody's going to watch this shit. MMA is amazing right now. And it just keeps going, and it's fabulous. The cards run quick. They're long. They got lots of fights, too. It's really exciting. It kind of hurts me to watch still. How many fights can you have, do you think? Bare knuckle.
Bare knuckle? Flip a coin.
What about spacing between them? Like, do you think there's a 1 or 2 a year max?
Well, it depends on how much damage you take, because not only your hands, but your face and your scar tissue. You know, some people will get cut, big-ass cut on their face, and then they are out for 2 months, and they need another fight because this is all they do, and then, bam, it's even worse, and before you know it, your eyeball's falling out, you know. So, you know, it just depends on the damage, really. And knock on wood, Zeb hasn't taken a lot of damage, man. So, you know, he's ready left and right, you know, but at the same time, you got to chill, you know, like you fuck up your hands too. Hitting people with no gloves, you know, your hands will get fucked up. They'll get broke quick, or, you know, even worse, you know, dislocated, whatever, you know. I broke my hand. I don't know if you can see that. You see my knuckles compared to that?
Oh, my God. Oh, that's actually,
you know,
yeah.
A hand injury can be a fight ender too, you know, a career ender, if you would. So, I don't know. It just varies on how much damage you take, really, for your length.
Do you guys talk about that?
About spacing between fights?
Do you guys have open conversation or open dialogue about, hey, Zeb, you know, you are a fighter. That is your career. Do you ever encourage him to say, hey, we need to look at options as far as going back to MMA to rest up maybe, or...
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, actually. And, you know, sometimes, you know, Zeb, this is his career right now. He's a pro fighter. This is him in his peak, you know. So sometimes when BKFC is dragging their feet or something, he'll be like, hey, what's up on an MMA fight? We need to stay busy, you know. And as long as he's not injured, you know, he's allowed to do fights with gloves. So, you know, it's kind of, we play it by ear. But really, it's BKFC's kept him busy the past couple years. So,
well, that's fantastic that they allow him to do that and they don't lock him up.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you.
I mean, I don't think it would work vice versa. We're like, all right, as long as you don't have gloves, you can go fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, they barely let the UFC guys grapple. You know,
right.
I mean, and they're even pretty stringent on that stuff. What, in your prime, how bad did you want to make it to the UFC?
Oh, man, bad. I mean, I committed my whole life to trying to make it to the UFC. You know, I didn't make it. It was a lot harder when I was fighting because it was still new to the sport, and really you had to work your way up or know somebody to get you in. You know, you couldn't just fight on the Contender Series and get in that way. There wasn't options like that. I couldn't, you know, well, I did try out for the Ultimate Fighter, and I made it. When I tried out, I don't remember what year it was, but it was like the Ultimate Fighter 3, I think. Maybe, I don't remember. It was after Junie Brownie fought because his brother was on the card. Well, his brother tried out too, and I remember them hazing him when he was trying. He's like, "You're gonna be a quitter," blah blah blah. But there was 700. I think it was 700 competitors when I tried out, and I made it to the top 40. And I believe they didn't choose me because at the time my wife was pregnant, and as soon as, like, at the beginning you like hit mitts. No, you grapple first. First you grapple. I got the first armbar of the whole tournament or the whole tryouts, and I had some Mexican kid, and they basically, you got 1 minute to grapple in front of matchmakers, and there's like everybody's surrounding you, and it's like a fight for real. And I was the first one. Well, no, I was like the second or third one to go, but I armbarred this kid, And they're like, stop, stop, stop. And I'm like, fuck, I'm not going to break it. I thought we were just grappling. And everybody clapped, and so I made it to the next round. And then my friend Tyler Stinson went out there with me. Shout out to Tyler. And so he made it through the first round too.
Where'd you guys go?
This was in Chicago.
Okay.
We went out there, and we stayed with one of my buddies, Brian. Shout out to Brian too if he watches this. He let us stay at his place, got us some Chicago pizza, talk shit on the Chiefs, and Then we went into the tryouts. So we printed off our papers at Brian's house. So we bypassed the line when we got there. There's a fucking line out the hotel or casino. And we got up there first, got in the first group. Me and Tyler advanced to the second part. Second part, you're hitting mitts. And it's all the UFC tie pad holders, and they're calling out combos. And me and Tyler were both lefties, and I lucked out and got a lefty holder. And so, boom, we was rocking it, and he was showing me what's up, and I was hitting. He was calling out the combos. I was doing whatever he said. So I got picked to the next round, and my buddy Tyler got some shitty holder who didn't know lefty combos and made him look like shit, and he's a good striker too. And so he got cut. And so then comes the last part is the interview, and they only chose like 40 people at the end there. And Tyrone Woodley actually was in there too with me in the interview. This was before we fought, and he didn't get picked either. But everyone got cut, so there's people still waiting in the lobby and shit, and they're talking shit and they're fighting out there. The people that got caught, they're drinking, getting drunk, and my buddy Tyler, he's had a few drinks, and he was like, "I whooped his ass. Why is he still in here?" And it got crazy at the end there. But when they called me in to interview me, they started immediately asked. They're like, "So your wife's pregnant?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I can fight." And they're like, "Yeah, but when she do?" I'm like, "Oh, she's like 8 months." And they're like, "Yeah." So they didn't pick me. So I got cut. We drove home that night, and I had to work in the morning. Actually, we drove back from Chicago that night. We left at 11 and got back, and he dropped me off at work, and I clocked in and probably took a nap in the break room or something. I don't remember, but yeah, I didn't get picked. But that was that was like one of the only ways to get in the UFC back then. The quick route was that Ultimate Fighter show, and I would have been fun on there. So they missed out. But
you would have been a blast.
After that, I fought Woodley on Strikeforce, and that was another big opportunity. But the rest is history. That's when the gym shit happened and everything. So it's just life. Shit happens.
Did you have any other close attempts or any other really hopeful times when maybe you got an email or you met somebody in the industry that was pretty close to both, like a tweener, maybe someone was in Bellator and they just got into UFC that you had a close relationship with?
Really, I just tried making my fight record the best as possible after that. I was 10-3 when I fought Woodley, I think, and I just kept trying to stack on wins and take big fights to get recognized. That was kind of my way of being seen. All right, Paul Daly, fuck it, I'll fight him. That was kind of my
Which
mentality.
Is bananas, right? That if people don't know who the fuck Paul Daly is, the fact that you shared the cage with him, man.
Man, he's shorter than I thought he was.
I
thought he was like a big dude, but I was like, oh, this dude's short. Granted, he still beat me, but that was a banger.
He had a
He hit me in the back of the head, man. That was some bullshit. Run it back. No, I'm just kidding.
He had a stint in the UFC before you guys fought, right?
Before we fought. So I knew not to turn my back on him in between rounds, because that's when he hit Koscheck on that. Yeah.
If you had to go back and you had to pick a pivotal moment that you'd make a change, do any stand out?
No, man. No regrets, man. Real talk. I mean, granted, I wish I would have arm triangled Woodley, but that was the main thing that I said about losing to Woodley was we signed an EA Sports contract for the game, EA MMA, I think is what it is, and the winner got put on that game, and he fucking got put on the game, and I didn't. So I would have been immortal. My kids would be playing me right now if I was on there. So that was really my biggest loss on that fight. It wasn't the fight. I don't care about that. It was the fact that I'm not on the video game. I was that close.
Yeah. When I met you in 2015, I called the gym and I said, "Hey, do you have any beginner classes?" I think I've told you this story before, and you were like, Well, no. How are you gonna learn? You just come on and train in the regular classes, and I went through a lot of mental health issues, and there were months that you let me train with getting a little emotional just talking about it, but you let me train without paying, and you really took care of me, man. So, thank you so much for doing this, dude.
I mean, don't make me cry, bro.
Yeah, you're the fucking shit,
I'm
dude.
trying not to.
Whoo! Yeah, you're the fucking man, dude. Thank you so much, dude.
Yeah.
All right.
Anytime.
Shout
Hey,
out.
I know when I was younger, when I got into martial arts, like I told you, I was with the wrong crowd, and really that kept me off the streets. And so I just return it, man. That's all.
Fuck yeah. All right, dude. Thanks so much, man.
Right.
All right, let's wrap it
done?
up.
We done?
We done.
All right, that's it.
Cool.